My name is Edelyn and Yhip. My husband and I have been married 22 years. We met and decided to wait before we started our family. He's a physician and I'm a nurse, and we wanted to pay off our student loans beforehand, and we found out that we are not able to have our own kids. So after mourning that loss, we decided to adopt. We adopted Michaela when she was 6 months old, and Jonathan and Benjamin a few years later, and they were 18 months from Taiwan. When we picked up the boys in Taiwan and Michaela came with us, it was a day of breathing like our family was complete. And we were one. When we came home, we came to realize that that Benjamin had medical issues. When Benjamin was sick, it required going to numerous doctor appointments. We tried to figure out as far as what he was sick from. I remember just being in the car a lot and having to drive back and forth to Sacramento. Our daughter was in school at that time, and so I had both boys with me, and I remember dropping Jonathan off at a daycare in Sacramento so that Benjamin and I could go to his appointments in Sacramento, and then coming back and being home in time to pick up Michaela from school. And we just did everything we could to whatever was necessary to take care of Benjamin. I found him in his room, not responsive. And he had required feeding tubes because he was not eating well and he was throwing up a lot. And I'm a nurse, and that day when I called 911, I completely forgot how to do CPR. And I just remember his body there and talking to the people on the phone. And not knowing what to do because that's my kid I'm trying to save. Benjamin was transported to Sacramento, where they said that he was not doing very well and that it was a life-threatening situation. And we were informed that he had some bleeding in his brain, and that it was not looking good. So we went home that evening, and our kids were staying at a friend's house. And the next day we went back to the hospital, and I get a call from my friends who had Jonathan and Michaela, and she was frantically crying and saying, "They're taking the kids away, they're taking the kids away." I said, "What do you mean they're taking the kids away?" "They're taking Jonathan and Michaela away, and they said you can't get them back." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? I don't understand." They said there was going to be an investigation, and we had to go to dependency hearings to get our Jonathan and Michaela back home. They were in foster care for, I think, over 2 weeks, people who they didn't know. And we were very blessed to have friends who wanted to take them into their home. And so their paperwork had to be processed. And they ended up staying with them for the duration of the dependency trial for about 8 or 9 months. And our visitations consisted of probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours once a week, where we could see our kids in a supervised setting at the Butte County Department of Children's Services. When Benjamin died, we had a small memorial service for him, and it was just our family. And since our family was from all over the place, it was a very rare occasion to have the entire family there. Department of Children's Services decided it was not healthy for Jonathan to come to his brother's service, and to see his family, so he did not come. As we were doing the ceremony, social workers sat in the back and took notes. And we felt like we couldn't really openly grieve for our son. In July of 2012, I was preparing the car here at home we were going to see the kids that day. And so they had their request of things from their room, and I heard a banging noise in my garage and in the front door. And the sheriff came in and said that they had a warrant for my arrest. They took me to get processed. I was in a cell before getting processed on my own for most half of the day. I didn't have my lawyer's phone number at that time, and the sheriff deputy said, well, I'm not going to give you that phone call, and I don't have his number. But I heard them putting Peter in the cell or holding area next to mine. And I ended up being in jail for a little over, I think a few days, less than a week. And then my husband was in there for over a week. And we were out on bail. And at that time, we had saved all our monies up because we finally completed our family, and we were going to do something to invest and all that. So everything was emptied out for our bail. And we had people who offer their homes so that we can be out of prison, out of jail. So they offered those as part of our bond. So in our battle to get our kids back home, we were in court for that for about 9-10 months. And the judge had ruled out, I had dismissed the charges. And so our kids were able to come home. That was a huge success for us to have our kids home. But we came to realize that when they did come home, they were not the same. Michaela came home in this living room every night, tantrums for about 2 hours or so of just screaming and crying and kicking the wall, and she was just very angry. Jonathan was asking for our friends, for his uncle, and didn't want to snuggle with Peter because he knew Uncle Joe, and I could sense that hurt my husband, and our kids were having a hard time dealing with that. But we were glad that the dependency case was dismissed. Then it was our turn to prove our innocence, because we are. It was a matter of working with our lawyers and the physicians and looking at all the tests and the history of how sick he was in Taiwan and how many hospitalizations, not just clinic visits, but in intensive care. And it was gathering all that data up and providing it to the district attorney, in hopes that he would listen. And also at that same time, we've come to realize that we are not alone. We're not the only ones who have been battling or who are in the same situation that we are in. Other families also wrongfully accused of hurting their children, but are just doing what's best for their kids. And when the charges were dismissed, it was a mixture of emotions. After the judge said that the case is now dismissed, there was jubilation in the courtroom. But at the same time, I didn't feel, I mean, it was great to have this behind us, but my son is gone. My family and my kids are not the same. But there's a lot to be done. What we want to do is to change, to make a change so that our nightmare does not happen again to other families who are just looking out for their kids, and that there is a lot of change in the way that the healthcare providers need to look at each situation differently. And not just because you have the three things that are wrong with a kid, you completely just lead to chicken baby syndrome or abusive head trauma. You have to look at the whole picture, because it's families that are broken, and it's not just a financial toll, and it's the emotional toll that it takes on your whole family.